Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 169 of the podcast. Today is Monday, believe it or not, December 16th. Apologies for not releasing an episode on Sunday like usual, but I was busy. The animal had a cough. He still has a cough, but he's going to power through it tonight on a Monday. I usually like to put these out on Sundays, so I'm not influenced by anything else that I listen to, and I'm only giving you guys my opinions. So I tried not to. I try not to consume any MMA media today, and I don't like to give you guys any opinions that have been swayed. But in any case, here we go. Let me introduce my co-host, all the way from coughing and sneezing and the dark depths of his bedroom in New Jersey, is Jeff, the animal Wilson. Jeff, Mama Soup helped clear up that cold a little bit, kid. What's going on?
A little bit, but we're in bad shape, Bill. So I'm on some antibiotics. The first thing the antibiotics did was give me a fever and make me puke. So I assume they're working, Bill. But anyway, we got some sleet coming down in Jersey. We're supposed to get hit by this snowstorm. I doubt it. I doubt it'll happen. But I got 2 weeks coming up, little vacation. So I'll use that to recover. And then hit 2020, I'll hit the ground running. Bill, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Well, definitely no chance of a snowstorm. I got the AC cranking right now because it got like humid out of nowhere again. It's halfway through December, 80 degrees Florida today. You took a sick day today, Jeff. I took a sick day too, not for myself, but because my daughter woke up with a fever, so I can't send her to school. So we hung out and watched Elmo all day, which did help me stay away from the MMA content. But, that's never fun. She was super clingy and grumpy last night, and turns out it was for a reason. So little one is sick. So that means daddy takes a sick day. I don't take a sick day when I'm sick, Jeff. I got to take a sick day when the kid's sick, though. And here we go. Can you hear me, Jeff?
Yeah, now I can. I was just about to text you. You good?
Yeah, man. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, you don't want to be that asshole parent that sends your kid to school when they're sick and then everybody else gets sick, because I hate those parents, because it happened to me a lot. But in any case, I promise you guys I wouldn't turn this into a parenting podcast. So let's talk about some fist fights, shall we? UFC 245 from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, took place this past weekend. We're one more day removed than usual talking about this, but I think my old man brain can still remember what happened. Let's start at the top with the main event, Jeff. This was exactly kind of what I predicted here. A really close, really competitive fight by two of the top welterweights in the world, Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. Colby Covington has tricked a lot of the world into thinking that he can't fight because of his little gimmick and his shtick. And I just got to say, first of all, I don't like the fact that people are hating on him so much. Like, he lost a really close fight to a really dominant champion, a guy who beat the fuck out of Tyron Woodley, who is the reigning champion for 4 title defenses. And this was a really close fight. The one judge had Colby up 3 rounds to 1. Another judge had Kamaru up 3 rounds to 1. And the third judge had it 2 rounds apiece going into that 5th round. So it was really close. If it had gone a distance, Colby would have lost a decision, but it would have been a split decision. And, one judge would have given it to him. So really close fight. A bit of a controversial stoppage, just since Colby popped right back up again. What were your thoughts on the fight, Jeff? And you think the stoppage was early, or you think it was okay by Mark Goddard?
No, I think it was a good call by Mark Goddard. Covington had just taken punishment in those last 2 or 3 rounds. I'll be honest with you, Bill. I kind of had Covington winning this one on the cards if it weren't for the stoppage. But dude, it looked like somewhere at the end of that third round, middle of the fourth round, it looked like Kamaru Usman hit Covington with this one shot that broke his jaw, dude.
Mhm.
Um, Covington is such a tough guy, man. Both of these guys, really. I would love to see them fight again. I thought it was really, really back and forth. It was Covington's volume versus Kamaru Usman, timing his shots, and really, really hitting Covington with power punches. I'll be honest with you. I thought Usman needed the finish here, man. I
Mhm.
thought Covington was just overloading him with volume. Um, but really good fight from both of these guys. I would have loved to see some more wrestling, but at the same time, I think they respected each other so much that you weren't going to see that from either guy. And I think that their stand up is really underrated. I think that their stand up looked great from both sides on Saturday night. And just a really exciting fight, man. If you weren't excited about this one, something's wrong with you personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought both of their striking looked much improved. Colby's throwing head kicks up there, which showed that he really wasn't worried about a takedown. His boxing looked really crisp, like better than we've seen it at any time before. He wasn't fighting with the same pressure that he normally does, and I think it's because those body shots from Usman were slowing him down. He was sticking that rear teep in Colby's gut so seamlessly. Like I almost didn't see it sometimes. Like he was
Yeah.
just stick it in there every time Colby got close, which was a great game plan by Usman. I think Usman didn't get enough credit for his game planning here because, he normally wins fights the same way Colby does by taking guys down and grinding them out. Um, but yeah, I thought Colby was a step ahead with the striking. Same as you. He was landing that looping hook like right behind the ear of Usman almost at will. The things that I didn't like seeing were what appeared to be faking injuries from Usman. The first one, the low blow where it was clearly a knee to the body, and it looked like his foot like grazed maybe above the cup area, but it definitely didn't look like a low blow to me. Now, I'm not in there. I didn't feel it, so I can't say for sure. And then the eye poke, it didn't seem like an eye poke. And from one angle, it looked like maybe Colby's pinky went in, but the eye his pinky went into was the opposite eye that Usman was
Mm,
complaining about. So, I mean, that's not like a huge deal. It's not like Jessica I missing weight by 5 pounds kind of cheating. It's just, calling a fake injury to get a minute to catch your breath. You ain't cheating, you ain't trying, I guess. The thing I didn't like, though, was that Mark Goddard showing a little bit of bias and not stopping the fight when Colby said he got poked.
mm.
Which makes me question the stoppage a little bit, especially because Usman landed a couple of illegal blows when Covington was in there. And he had his head down in between Usman's legs when he was grabbing for that double, which for most people would be a bad sign, but that's how Colby shoots on people. It's
Yeah.
very unorthodox. He has a very unorthodox double leg. You got to keep that in mind. And Mark Goddard probably doesn't know that because he hates grappling. But yeah. So, and the fact that he pops right back up in Mark Goddard's face telling me that he wasn't out, but I still think it was a good stoppage. I agree with you, Jeff, just for the fact that Colby was dropped twice,
Yeah.
before he was taking those hammer fists on the ground. If he was just dropped the one time and, he was taking that damage there, I'd say let it continue, especially since it's so close. It's a title fight. And you know how tough the guy is. But, man, if you don't respect the way Colby Covington fights, I don't know. I don't know what you're doing as a fan of mixed martial arts. I mean, what else do you want from this guy? He smashed top competition. I mean, Damian Maia, RDA, Robbie Lawler, all guys who were supposed to beat him. He ran through those guys, dominated them. He went almost 5 hard rounds with the champ Kamaru Usman. Like, what more do you want to see from this guy? I don't think there will be a rematch. Powered through a broken jaw or potentially broken jaw, which, by the way, I loved his corner's response when he was like, I think I broke my jaw. And the cornerman kind of ignored it. And then he said it again. He's like, hey, Did you hear me? I think I broke my jaw. He's like, yeah. Use your wrestling. I thought that was such a great response from the corner. I forget the guy's name, but I know he's Amanda Nunes' lead corner too, which we'll get to. Yeah, so I thought it was a great fight. I think deserving of a rematch since it was so close, but I know we won't see that. I think the next thing should be Usman versus Masvidal, and then Colby against Woodley. We know Woodley turned down the fight against Leon Edwards, which normally I would be against. Like when you hear stuff like that, like guys don't want to take a fight, but like, come on, Woodley just lost his championship. You're gonna make him fight like a virtual nobody on their home turf in London. I could see why he turned that down too, and his response was kind of corny, but we expect that from Woodley. He's not great on the microphone, but yeah, I see why he turned that fight down. But there's heat between Covington and Woodley. I'm sure Woodley doesn't mind taking a little more time off, waiting for Covington's jaw to heal up. You know they're gonna build a fight up. They're gonna talk a lot of trash and put it on the same card as Usman and Masvidal. What do you think about that plan, Jeff?
Yeah, dude, I love it. Let's go for it. And Bill, I just want to add something. When you were talking about the eye poke that Usman may or may not have faked, it was interesting because when that happened, Bill, I thought that Colby Covington might have been able to finish Kamaru Usman in that exchange. He was making Usman move backward. He had just hit him with some really hard shots. And right when Covington was going to swarm him, that's when Usman kind of called a timeout here, saying that he got poked in the eye. And, you know, the replay did show that he got poked in the eye a little bit. But like you said, he grabbed the other eye, so it was a little weird. I'm not saying he faked it. I'm just saying look into it.
Look into it. I like that.
I'm the Eddie Bravo of the show, Bill.
Yeah.
Look into it.
If we have time, I want to talk about Eddie Bravo a little later because I did watch the most recent Quintet that took place on Thursday, which feels like ages ago. We got a comment from our buddy Matt Temple here. Fake news. Kamaru fake newsman. Dude, I like it.
There you go. That's the title of the show, man.
Fake newsman. I like the corniness from Colby. I don't mind it.
He's rude and I like it, Bill.
Yeah, I mean the one time he crossed the line probably was when he was talking about Glenn Robinson, who's the former owner of the Black Zillions gym. I don't know if you guys watching or listening remember the season of The Ultimate Fighter where American Top Team went against the Black Zillions, who's been a staple in MMA forever, and Glenn Robinson, who is a guy who kind of, you know, paid big names to put a team together. I don't like, you know, disrespecting the dead. So I didn't even read what he had said, but just the fact that he brought him up was in poor taste. So I can't condone that. Anyway, I want to move on for the sake of time. Before we get into the rest of this card, I wanted to start off the show, and I almost forgot, with a shout out to my buddy Steve Maraboli, who came away with a gold and a bronze medal at the Good Fight tournament and is now a submission-only world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the age of 44 years young. So a big shout out to Steve. You guys may know him from the MMA and Beyond podcast. The guy trains his ass off, represents Team Renzo Gracie, much like yourself, Jeff. I feel like I still represent Team Renzo Gracie a little bit. I've since left there for a couple of years now to move on in my jiu-jitsu journey, but I definitely carry a lot of tricks that I learned from that team. So big shout out to Steve, man, 44 years old, doing a sport that he picked up in his 40s.
Nice.
So only doing this for a couple of years, walking away with a gold medal in the gi and a bronze medal in the no gi. So the guy hasn't even trained no gi. He's still walking away with the bronze.
Nice.
He's like, take that, chumps. All right, so let's move on. Co-main event. I had kind of predicted this one. I had kind of seen it coming. Based on Volkanovski's style and based on what we saw in Max Holloway's last performance against Dustin Poirier. I think he showed a couple of vulnerabilities, and Volkanovski comes from such a great camp. I knew that they would be studying that fight. I don't think Max Holloway underestimated Volkanovski at all, but I think he seems to be a guy who, things have been working well for him for so long. Maybe not willing to fix those little holes in his game, like checking leg kicks. The leg kicks from Volkanovski were a big factor early on in the fight, to the point where after the second round, Holloway had to fight southpaw, and then he was getting that leg chewed up. Volkanovski was a lot quicker. He wasn't getting pressured by Max. He was in and out of the pocket. The people I was watching the fight with, I went over to my buddy Ryan's house to watch the fights. A lot of people thought like maybe Holloway would steal a decision. I thought it was a clear-cut win for Volkanovski. Obviously, crazier things have happened. We saw some wonky decisions earlier in the night. But the judges got this one right, and we got a new featherweight champ. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, I'll be honest with you, Bill. And you and I kind of agreed on this. I had this 4 rounds to 1, had it 49-46 for Volkanovski, but I wasn't sure if he'd done enough to mitigate a win and take the belt from Holloway. Sometimes with these judges, they're a little wonky, man. And, the decision doesn't always go the right way in these title fights, but definitely did on Saturday. I thought Volkanovski went in there with a really good game plan, chopping down Max Holloway. I'm a huge supporter of leg kicks. I think that the way you take down a house is from the bottom up. I was loving the leg kicks, especially in that first and halfway through the second round. You could see Holloway's leg, his lead leg was all red. It was getting chewed up, man. And Volkanovski, I thought he was patient in there. I thought he was really smart. Moving in and out really well. The head movement was fantastic. He was giving Holloway a lot of problems that I don't even think Dustin Poirier gave to Max Holloway. I thought we saw some very, very interesting stuff. And I don't want to say that there are holes in Max Holloway's game, but Volkanovski definitely did his homework on the champ. And he just fought really, really well, was using the distance really well. It looked like Max Holloway had a huge reach advantage just because he's a taller guy as well. And, that did not matter to Volkanovski. I think that Max Holloway would have benefited from sticking the jab in Volkanovski's face and checking some of those leg kicks. But take nothing away from Volkanovski, man. He was in there patient. His game plan all stemmed from the leg kicks. Then he was beating up the body a little bit. He got in Max's face. I thought it was a genius game plan.
Yeah, and I'll tell you who it's good news for, and that's Frankie Edgar. I know he's still talking about moving down to 135, but I think the Volkanovski-Edgar matchup is really favorable for Frankie, who's going to be taking on Korean Zombie next week. So, if he comes away with an impressive victory over Korean Zombie in Korea, he may have to rethink that move to 135. Now that things have been mixed up at featherweight. As for Holloway, that dude is so big. I would like to see him really bulk up the right way and move up to lightweight. I know, lightweight is a fucking shark tank. There's no denying that. There's a lot of tough fights, but I think if he really does it right and puts on the right kind of muscle, not just moving up for a one-off like he did against Poirier, but, really does it right. I mean, he has nothing else to prove at featherweight, except maybe a rematch with Volkanovski and beating him. But, he's so big. He's getting a little older. That cut's going to be a lot harder. I'd really like to see Max move up to lightweight, and I think he could be really competitive there. Speaking of competitive, Germaine de Randamie, much more competitive in her rematch with Amanda Nunes than she was the first time they fought, but that's only because they went to distance and she didn't get finished in the first round. I thought this was a dominant performance by the champ. She gassed out, but she still controlled the whole rest of the fight. 10-8 round for her in the first, easily, I thought. She came back and lost the second round. Credit to de Randamie for that. You know, she had a lot of good volume in that round. Another 10-8 for the champ in the third, in my opinion. And then she kind of had to, you know, conserve her energy and just hold de Randamie down for the fourth and fifth. But, you know, de Randamie didn't do anything that would warrant a rematch, definitely, since this is the second time they fought. And, you know, we got the same result. We know who the better fighter is. Give me your thoughts on this one, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, Amanda Nunes coming out so explosive in that first round. And she took some damage too. Don't get it twisted. De Randamie threw some tough shots at her. There were some head kicks that maybe didn't wobble Nunes, but you knew they were doing damage. And dude, Amanda Nunes using her ground game so well. I thought she was going to finish Germaine de Randamie in the first round, actually, when she cinched up that arm triangle. And de Randamie, you know, she did a good job. She did the telephone by the ear thing. That's the right defense. But some people have such a tight squeeze that they get it anyway. And I felt like Amanda Nunes was putting that squeeze on. You know, it looked like de Randamie was fading a little bit. And then Nunes kind of went back to mount just because it looked like her arms were burning out a little bit. So great ground control from Amanda Nunes. You know, she did pretty well on the stand-up too. You know, the only thing I would have wanted her to stay away from was the clinch, because the clinch is where de Randamie was really doing some damage. But Amanda Nunes was so smart in turning away from the cage and then using that to turn into a takedown to put de Randamie on her back. So great performance from Nunes. I feel like de Randamie, you know, she had her spots too, but I agree with you, Bill. I don't see this one being run back here, especially after they fought each other twice.
Yeah. And that's a weakness of people who are really good with that Thai clinch that move over to MMA, is that, you know, in Muay Thai and Dutch style kickboxing, nobody can attack your legs. You know, nobody can change levels. So that's kind of unexpected for them. You know, they're used to the throws and the bumps from that clinch where people aren't changing their level and dropping their weight down. So it's not always effective in MMA for people who are familiar with that clinch. One funny moment in this fight, I think it was in the second round, where Germaine de Randamie tried to throw up a lazy triangle. Not the triangle that she had that was kind of tight later on in the fight, but she throws up like a lazy high guard, and Amanda Nunes just kind of backsteps out of it, like just straight walks out of it. And Joe Rogan goes, "She's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu." And it was like, dude, somebody off the street would just walk out of that if somebody tried to throw their legs around your head. But I just found his reaction so funny, because it was like such a lazy thing. Like, her leg came up here and she's like, "No," and just backstepped out of it. Like, just walked out of the triangle attempt. And he was really emphasizing that she's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, which she proved later on when she was caught in a tighter triangle. In any case, let's move on. We were talking earlier about that wonky judging. Marlon Moraes getting a split decision victory over Jose Aldo, the former featherweight king here. A lot of people, including the champ at Bantamweight, Henry Cejudo, thought Aldo won this one. It was a competitive fight, and I'll say this. So Marlon Moraes clearly won the first round. He got tagged a little bit at the end, and he had to tie up Aldo, and he hit him with that lateral takedown, that lateral toss, and just kind of laid on him for the last 15 or 10 seconds, whatever it was. But he definitely won that round. And then for the second and third, he was just gassed. I don't think Aldo was doing a lot of damage to him. He was landing more. He was pressuring. He definitely outpointed him in the second and third. But the real story of the fight was that Marlon Moraes emptied the tank in the first round, similar to what he did against champ Henry Cejudo. Trying to throw all those head kicks and everything. He still had a couple of flashy moments that maybe stood out to the judges. And here's the other thing. People are seeing judges are people just like anyone else. They're not immune to what everyone's saying leading up to the fight, where everybody's talking about Jose Aldo looking like a skeleton trying to weigh in. So if they have that in their head, I'm not trying to make excuses. This was a terrible decision. But even before the decision was read, somebody at the party I was at said, imagine if the decision goes to Moraes. And I said, well, I've seen crazier things happen, and I have. I stand by that. I think Aldo should have won, but I'll say it again. I've seen crazier things happen. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, Aldo got robbed here, Bill. I don't know how else to say it. Moraes, great first round by him. Came out with that switch kick and, almost dropped Aldo with the first shot of the fight. Great for him, but he lost rounds 2 and 3. It's that simple. Was he gassed? Yes. That's not Jose Aldo's fault. Aldo, Aldo went out there, his output was bigger. He was outpointing Moraes, which is, that's what you want to do. If you can't finish your opponent, you want to win the rounds. And that's what Aldo did. He won rounds 2 and 3. Was making Moraes miss. Aldo's head movement was looking good. I would have liked to see more leg kicks out of Jose Aldo. Personally, slow Moraes down, especially, we know Aldo has vicious leg kicks. You can just ask Uriah Faber. But, yeah, dude, overall, I really wasn't happy with the decision on this one, especially because Aldo is, he's not old. He's just been doing this for a long time. And I felt like he merited the win, especially his last couple of fights haven't gone too well. And so, I felt like Aldo needed this. It definitely would have mixed up the bantamweight division a little bit if he got the win here. But, Bill, what did you think of Jose Aldo at 135? Because we talked a little bit about last week, maybe him not doing this again. But, Bill, I think he kind of proved he can roll here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not a fan of it just because he always had trouble making 45. He definitely didn't look healthy the weeks leading up to the fight. He's not old. He's only 33. You would think he was 60 because he's been fighting forever and he's accomplished so much in this sport. But yeah, only 33 years old. But that's still a little late in life to be doing that to your body. Especially in a sport like this where you could be taking impact to your organs and to your brain. I'm not a fan of that big of a cut for him, but he did look phenomenal in this fight. He showed he recovered really well. He had better endurance than Marlon, who normally fights at this weight. It may be time for Marlon to move up because he carries a lot of muscle. He's a big dude for that weight class, and he's been doing it for a long time. Because how long does he expect to stay at 135? Realistically, you're 33 years old. You used to struggle to make 45. You really want to be living your life this way, like going into your mid 30s. So I don't think it's a good move career-wise, but he did look great. So you can't argue with results. If that's what he wants to do to himself, then maybe I think he'd still be competitive at 145 pounds. Now people are starting to see what Volkanovski is capable of. There's a little bit more tape on him. Somebody's going to solve that puzzle, and, we'll see what happens. But in any case, let's move on to some more bantamweights. Peter Yan, Uriah Faber. I don't think Faber looked terrible in this fight, but he was definitely a step behind Peter Yan. Like, he just didn't have the speed. He didn't have the same reaction time. He was getting tagged up. And then, in that second round, that broken orbital, that big mouse on the side of his face. And when he got caught with that shot, he was like going over and like waving to his wife and waving to Joe Rogan. It was like the end of The Wizard of Oz when Dorothy wakes up and she was like, I was in a dreamland with a bunch of munchkins and you were there and you were there and you were there. It was kind of like that. And then, when I saw them putting that cold steel on that mouse of his, like, which is clearly a broken, like, he looked like Uriah Faber wearing a Uriah Faber mask. Like, his face looked like the Phantom of the Opera mask. But credit to him, he got back in there for the third and toughed it out. And Peter Yan had to do what he had to do and head kick the fuck out of him.
Yeah, dude, that last that third round, that head kick, it was like the scene where the monkeys pull apart the scarecrow, Bill.
Like we're having all these Wizard of Oz references now. It was like this. It was more like the scene when they dropped the house on the on the witch of the East. Yeah, man. I don't know. I mean, he came back. He looked good. I mean, he looks good physically for 40 years old. I hope I look like that when I'm 40, because I didn't even look like that when I was 20. So I hope somehow I have like some kind of Benjamin Button thing going on with my fitness, where I end up looking like that at 40 years old. But man, just a step behind. If his goal is to get in this just to get that UFC gold, that eluded him for much of his career. I mean, in my book, he's still a UFC champion because he was the champion of the WEC, which was acquired by the UFC. It's the same thing. That weight class didn't exist in the UFC back then. So, he was the top of all the best fighters in that division at one point. But man, it's just not in the cards, Uriah. I mean, you're a smart dude. You got a lot of businesses going on. You run a successful gym. Maybe it's time to sit down, but who am I to tell him what to do? I mean, he could get in there. He could still compete. He could still beat probably, 85% of the guys in the division. I think the fight with Cejudo probably would have been more competitive than this one. Peter Yan's up and comer. He's getting better every time. In any case, any other thoughts on this one, Jeff?
No, I thought Peter Yan, he went in there and, like you said, man, he was just one step ahead, a little bit faster. And Uriah Faber, he's a legend, but time might be catching up to him.
Yeah, man. Speaking of things catching up to you, Mike Perry, 4 months removed from one of the worst broken noses we've ever seen. Got his face completely smashed in by Vicente Luque.
Yep.
With a nasty knee. His nose was just completely smushed. Plastic reconstructive surgery. 4 months later, he's in there with Jeff Neal. Right before this fight started, I said Jeff Neal is a very technical, very stiff, very rigid fighter who throws straight punches right down the pipe, and that's kryptonite for Mike Perry. I pretty much hit the nail on the head, just mixing a few head kicks. Perry did not look like the same fighter in there. It was too soon for him to come back after an injury like that. I could see like wanting to jump right back into it just because, he's just that kind of guy. He needs to be fighting all the time, but you got to get some more sparring rounds. You got to get used to getting hit in that nose a little bit before you get in there and do it on the biggest stage. I think that definitely played a factor in him getting dropped as early as he did. I mean, nobody's knocked out Mike Perry in 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's just unheard of. Jeff Neal is a fucking stud. Can't take anything away from him. I think his style is definitely a bad matchup for Mike Perry, even if they fought before the nose injury. But I think it definitely played a factor. But he looked phenomenal in this fight. He looked pretty indestructible. And I think there's a bright future for Jeff Neal in this welterweight division. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, I think Jeff Neal's going to really tear it up in this welterweight division. Still hasn't lost in the UFC yet, if I'm not mistaken. But, Bill, you got to be worried for Mike Perry here, man. Like you said, probably not completely recovered from that broken nose he suffered against Vicente Luque. Probably shouldn't have taken this fight. But, Bill, right now he's got three losses in his last 5 outings. I mean, what do you do here?
Yeah, and I think it goes a little deeper than that. I think he's lost 5 of his last 7. I'll have to pull that up, but yeah, not looking good. I mean, he's a fan favorite.
Oh, absolutely.
He's definitely got a following. If you're the UFC, you don't want to let that guy go because he's going to go somewhere else and he's going to be smashing dudes in Bellator or something. and he's going to be a big draw for them. So it's a tough call, but the guy's been on main cards for so long, fought Cowboy Cerrone in a main event, I think. How much can you scale him back? You got to let him go in there and knock some poor guy's head off. But, you don't want to make it too obvious either because he's been in there with top competition. He's had a lot going on. He switched up camps twice. He left his camp in Orlando, went out to Greg Jackson's for a couple of fights, didn't really vibe with that group. Got back together with his girlfriend who became his wife, moved back to Orlando. Now he's back with Julian Williams, which is the right fit for him. I think, those guys are really making smart moves with him. I think maybe if he had stuck with them the whole time, we might be having a different conversation right now. But yeah, I don't think the UFC cuts him just because he's such a commodity, but he's got to be careful. And he definitely has a style. If you look at the guys who've beaten him, Max Griffin, Santiago Ponzinibbio, they all have one thing in common. They all throw those straight punches right down the pipe, and they're not. And if they get into a brawl, they know he's going to be swinging wild. They're going to be putting him right in his face. And that's what happened. But Jeff Neal, man, he's had a head kick knockout in the UFC, 5-0 in the UFC, 6-0 if you count the Contender Series. This guy's a problem in this division. And he's doing it quietly. And he's knocked out two wild men in a row in Mike Perry and Nico Price. Even brawled with Nico a little bit before he knocked him out. So I would like to see him tested into grappling a little bit more. I know we saw that a little bit in his fight with Bilal Muhammad, but I think once we see that, especially because of how grappling heavy the top of this division is, you got Usman and Covington and Damian Maia still, really grappling heavy at the top of the division. Tyron Woodley, I would like to see him tested against some of these guys, against a high-level wrestler. But, yeah, Jeff Neal, he's going to be a contender we're going to be talking about real soon. All right, Irene Aldana with a really impressive knockout over Ketlin Vieira. She hit her with a hook that came from fucking Jupiter, man. And this was a really impressive one for Aldana. Looking good on a big pay-per-view. Wasn't on the main card, but a lot of eyes on this on ESPN. Any thoughts on that one, Jeff?
Yeah, she looked really good. She was Ketlin Vieira's a big girl, man. And Irene Aldana just hit her right in that sleeper spot, right where the jaw meets the lower jaw. Dude, really good fight up until that point too. Very technical from both sides, but Aldana, man, just landed such a tight hook. And then one more right hand just to finish the job. Really good fight. That one was really enjoyable.
Yeah, man. For the sake of time, I'm going to run down the rest of the card, and you tell me what impressed you the most. It could be one, it could be more. Omari Akhmedov and Ian Heinisch in a really competitive fight. Akhmedov getting a unanimous decision there. A lot of really good wrestling scrambles in this fight. I like that one a lot. Matt Brown with a comeback win over Ben Saunders. Almost got submitted, I think, in the first round, and comes back to knock Ben Saunders out. Like I said last week, this might be a loser leaves town kind of deal. Might be a winner leaves town kind of deal too. But Matt Brown, feels like his conditioning was good enough to give it another run. Chase Hooper, the young man, 20 years old, with the TKO over Daniel Tamer. It wasn't pretty, man. He had to take a lot of damage to get this one done. Survived a really nasty Darce choke from Daniel Tamer too. But wound up getting a couple of submission attempts. He sunk in a really deep rear naked choke. Tamer escaped. And then he was able to mount him and get the TKO, bust his face open. Tamer's a really experienced guy. Chase Hooper, 20 years old, said he wanted to go get M&Ms after his big win on a UFC pay-per-view. So good for him. 20 years old in Las Vegas. He wants to go get M&Ms. He could probably go get anything else he wanted. Drugs, hookers, You name it. But he wanted M&Ms, so good for him. Brandon Moreno and Kai Kara France. I thought this should have been the fight of the night. These guys fucking slugged it out for 15 minutes. It was exhausting just watching it. Jessica I gets a win, but she missed weight by 5 pounds, and I'm disgusted by that, especially because she's someone who has been so outspoken over people missing weight in the past, criticizing Sajari Eubanks and other people like that. That's all I have to say about that. And Punahele Soriano with the knockout in the first round over Oscar Pichota. So give it to me, Jeff. What's sticking out the most to you? And then we got a fan question for you too.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I gotta give it to Matt Brown versus Ben Saunders here. Such a good fight, super competitive. From both of these guys, it looked like Ben Saunders had it in the first round with that triangle from the bottom. And Ben Saunders, he's got such a dangerous guard game, dude. And me personally, the guys who give me the most trouble are the guys who can fight off their backs from the bottom. And that was definitely Ben Saunders. Good for Matt Brown. That he got that finish. It looked like he needed it because he was definitely down on the cards. Super competitive, super back and forth. So for me, that's the one you got to go back and watch.
Yeah, man, that was a good throwback. You guys with good guards might give you problems, Jeff, but you're not immortal like Matt Brown.
That's true.
Fan question for you from Mr. Jeff, who's appeared on the show in the past. Question for the animal: what if we are the ones who are fake and wrestling is real?
I'll be honest with you. I still, there are parts of pro wrestling that are real. Because I was actually watching pro wrestling last night, the TLC event, and I gotta be honest with you, I still watch it for the athleticism. I think that these guys put themselves in real danger. And as for the fake fans, stop asking to come over every weekend. How about you order the fights and I'll go to your house? How's that?
I like it. Yeah, I mean, I saw that documentary, Behind the Mat. Was it called Beyond the Mat? Something like that. It came out like 10 years ago or so, and they followed up with these guys that were retired from pro wrestling. And the one guy, I think his name was Buff Bagwell, takes like 100 painkillers a day. And the guy interviewing him was like, "Why do you take 100 painkillers a day?" And he says to the guy, "Have you ever broken your neck?" And the guy was like, "No, I haven't actually." He's like, "Well, then you have no idea why I have to take 100 painkillers a day." Yeah, but these guys have it tough, especially back in the day when Vince McMahon wouldn't give any like health insurance. Before before it wasn't the law to have health insurance too. Yeah, these guys, the injuries are real. These guys are fucked for life, a lot of them, especially all the drugs and steroids and partying on the road and stuff.
Oh yeah, dude, right. That's why they still charge you $10 for an autograph, even though they're 65.
Yeah, man. Well, that's the only income. That's how they resurrected Jake the Snake.
Yeah, man. So Bill, what do we got next week?
Yeah. Let's speaking of being on the road, UFC is going to be in South Korea, in Busan. And this is supposed to be Brian Ortega against the Korean Zombie, but Ortega tore his ACL. So he pulled out of that fight. And Frankie Edgar put off his drop down to 135 pounds and stepped up and said, "I want to fight Korean Zombie." So he must see something in the Korean Zombie that he thinks he can beat him, and that would be a high-profile win for him, stepping into a main event on last minute because he's Frankie Edgar, and he's the fucking man. And that's it. So that's what we got. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Bill, I think Frankie Edgar's out of his mind taking this fight. It's super dangerous. He's got to acclimate to the fact that, Korea is like 47 hours ahead of us or whatever it is.
I think it's years, actually.
Yeah, it might be. Dude, I think this is a really dangerous fight for Frankie Edgar to take, man. Um, Korean Zombie's no walk in the park. He's not somebody that anybody wants to take on short notice, but he's Frankie Edgar. This is what he does. This is why the UFC adores him. This is why I adore him. But I think it's a really dangerous fight for him to be taken, man. The card starts at 5 a.m. The main card starts at 5 a.m. Prelims start at 2 a.m., Bill. So you got two options. You can either wake up early or not go to sleep.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to just not go to sleep for this one.
If my kid has a fever, I'll be woken up early. But yeah, that's tough. I agree with you. I think it's a bad fight to take on short notice, but man, you gotta love Frankie Edgar. Because that's just the kind of dude he is. He gets the call and he's just not gonna say no. I know I was just siding with Tyron Woodley for declining the fight in London with Leon Edwards, but that's because Edwards is like nobody besides like the people who listen to this show know who Leon Edwards is.
Bill, half the people who host this show don't even know who Leon Edwards is. I don't know who he is. So
he's the guy that got the 3-piece and a soda from Jorge Masvidal.
That's the only thing I know about him.
Yeah, that's probably all he'll ever be known for. In any case, yeah, there's that. We got an awesome co-main event for this too. Really flying under the radar. Volkan Ozdemir and Alexander Rakic. Rakic, of course, coming off of that nasty head kick knockout of Jimmy Manuwa, where I think he knocked him into retirement. Just so devastating, so nasty. This guy is so powerful. But Ozdemir has that weird knockout power too, where he can knock you out moving backwards. He can knock you out in a clinch. So somebody's probably going to sleep in this one. I don't see either of these guys wanting to take it to the ground. They're both looking to take each other's head off. Rakic fights with a lot of forward pressure, and Ozdemir knocks people out who fight with a lot of forward pressure. So this is my sleeper pick of the card. So maybe this one will be on around like 6:30 a.m. So that's at least reasonable for people in our Eastern Standard Time zone to pick up. And then we got Doo-Ho Choi, the Korean Superboy, against Charles Jourdain. And then I'm kind of lost after that, Jeff. We got Alexander Pantoja against Matt Schnell on here. And Saeed Nurmagomedov is down there on the prelims. But other than that, I'm lost with this one, Jeff. I don't recognize a lot of these names. So tell me what you're most excited for.
I'll be honest with you. Besides the main event, I'm really looking forward to watching Doo-Ho Choi. The dude's a stud in there, and I haven't seen him fight in a while, so I'm really excited to see what he's been working on, what he's added to his game. We know he can stand up with just about anybody in this featherweight division, so I'm really excited to see how he does in this outing. But other than that, Bill, I don't know too many of these guys, but I'm excited to find out more about them. Let's see what they got.
Yeah, man. I mean, sometimes those are the most exciting cards where you don't know a lot of people going into it, and then sometimes those are the hungriest people. Like, they want you to know their names, so they want to go out there and make a statement. So that's why it makes it worth it to check out these cards where you don't have a lot of star power. Cyril Gane is fighting on this card too.
Where'd he go?
What do you mean, where'd he go? Oh, I get what you did there.
You said he was gone, so where'd he go?
Yeah, I feel like an ass for stepping into that one, but thank you. Well played, Jeff. Well played. He's the one who he made that wasn't his UFC debut, but he fought in the UFC in October against Don'Tale Mayes and was outstriking him the entire fight, and then finished the fight with a heel hook out of nowhere with like 14 seconds left.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's that heavyweight dude. So he's another one to keep an eye on. I think it's Cyril Gane. It's Gane. But for some reason, I think it's Gane. He's French, I believe. Yes, from Paris, France. And in any case, he's fighting Tanner Boser. So that's another one to keep an eye on. And then a lot of Korean fighters on here, and the Koreans are tough as nails. So fun card. If you got nothing to do, if you're up all night on a Coke binge or something, check this out. Let me know how it
is. Why would the fans only be up for that reason, Bill?
Jeff, have you heard some of the people who who respond to our shows? Like I get tweets in the middle of the night, and these people have to be coked up and stuff. Like I get up in the morning and check my messages and my DMs and stuff. I was like, what the fuck are you people doing at 3 o'clock in the morning? You must be doing cocaine and listening to MMA on the Rocks. Don't do cocaine, kids. It's bad for you. It'll destroy your sinuses.
Well, Bill, some people don't like to do it. They just like how it smells.
Yeah, I don't like to get high from it. I just like how it smells. Well, get a cocaine scented candle. What can I tell you? They should make that.
Yeah, Bill. I just looked up Cyril Gahn real quick. Yeah, this guy, he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. He doesn't look like a heavyweight at all. Doesn't move like one. But yeah, the heel hook thing reminded me of who he was.
Yeah,
tough dude, very tough dude.
On the day before, on December 20th, we got a Bellator card, 235. And the only reason I bring it up is because Josh Barnett is making his Bellator debut against Hani Marks. But outside of that, there's actually nobody on this card. You got guys on here. Let me read the records. 4-0, 0-0, 4-0, 6-0, 5-1, 1-0, 0-1, 5-1, 5-2, 5-3, 8-3, 5-1, 10-6, 19-6. Josh Barnett has more MMA experience than the whole rest of the card combined. Like, what is the point of this card? It's in Hawaii, and they don't even have Ali Malay fighting on it. Josh Barnett is the main event. I love Josh Barnett. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. And it's not just because I met him in an airport in Tokyo buying whiskey, and we talked whiskey for a little bit. I don't know if I ever told that story on the air, but there it is. Met Josh Barnett in the Tokyo airport, and we were both buying Japanese whiskey at the duty free to take back with us. He's a really cool guy. He's like a foot taller than me, which isn't saying much, but he's a big dude. Yeah, so that's that. I'll talk real quick about the Quintet. So for those of you who don't know, this was a rule set that was started by Sakuraba, who is a legend of MMA. If you guys don't know who Sakuraba is, he's the Gracie Hunter. He's known for submitting and beating many Gracies back in Pride. He's a fucking superstar in Japan. Phenomenal MMA fighter, total legend of the sport. And he's a competitor, and he wanted to keep competing. So he came up with this idea for team grappling. So what it is you put up a team of 5 people, and they all have to be under a total combined weight. So I think there's different rules depending where you are, if you're in Japan or wherever. So let's say it's 850 pounds. You have to pick 5 guys who are under 850 pounds. And then there are 3 other teams, and they all have to have the same guidelines. And then you could pick your lineup however you want. You could have your best grappler go first and try and submit everybody, or you could have your best grappler go last or in the middle. So your first guy will go against the other team's first guy, and they will grapple. If there's no submission and it goes the whole 7-8 minutes, whatever it is, then both guys have to sit down. They're eliminated. Then it goes to the number 2 from each team. If my guy, say you and I both have a team, Jeff, if my guy submits your guy, my guy stays in and he will grapple your number 3 guy. If he submits your number 3 guy, my guy stays in and he will grapple your number 4 guy. Then if they go the full time distance, they're both eliminated until, if it goes down to both teams number 5 and it goes the full distance, then they go to a judge's decision. That's the only time you'll see a decision. So what they did with this most recent quintet, which is on UFC Fight Pass, I believe you can go watch it. They did. They had a team UFC, a team Pride, a team WEC, and a team Strikeforce. So the UFC and then 3 organizations that were all acquired by the UFC at some point in time, but all had their own level of popularity at some point. So the UFC team had Sean O'Malley, Gilbert Burns. Who else was on there? Rumble Johnson. I forget who else.
Rumble Johnson probably accounted for 300 of that team's pounds.
I see. He looks like he's leaning out a little bit. I'll tell you who was the biggest on team WEC was Mark Munoz. He looked like he ate Mark Munoz. He was humongous. Like, here's a guy who used to fight at 185 pounds in the UFC. He looked easily like 290, like 100 pounds above where he used to compete in the UFC. So you had Team WEC. Mark Munoz was on there. Cub Swanson. I forget who else they had. Oh, James Krause.
James Krause.
James Krause. And then Team Strikeforce, which was the team I thought was going to win. They had Jake Shields. They had Babalu. They had a bunch of good grapplers. Chad Mendez
on there.
WC. What's that?
Was Gilbert Melendez on any of the teams?
Yes, he was on the WEC team. No, Strikeforce team. Anyway, it was pretty cool. It wasn't like super high level grappling, but the strategy of it was interesting because you had guys who were straight wrestlers. Oh, Matt just reminded me Clay Guida and Anthony Smith were on the UFC team. You had guys who were straight wrestlers who didn't have a lot of submission skills. So you would have to put them in your lineup strategically so that they could have a double disqualification with somebody else. Like at one point they had Anthony Smith from the UFC team go against one of the Gracies. I forget which Gracie it was, but he just stalled him out. And so then he's out. So then he can't go submitting everybody because he's timed out.
That's cool. That's like doing baseball lineups.
Yeah,
that's a thinking man's game. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. So it came down to Gilbert Burns, who is like one of the best competitors in combat sports right now. This guy is doing everything. Like he's killing it in the UFC. I think he's one of the most underrated UFC fighters right now. He'll go and grapple anybody. He'll go and do Abu Dhabi or whatever. He doesn't care. He just loves to compete. It came down to a judge's decision between him and Jake Shields. And I won't spoil it for you guys if you haven't seen it and you want to go and check it out on Fight Pass. But yeah, it was pretty cool. It came on really late on Thursday. And I was like, I didn't make it through the whole thing because it was going like past midnight, which I can't do. I don't work night anymore. I'm just too old for that shit, Jeff. In any case, I think we covered it all. I know you haven't been drinking anything lately because you've been sick for like 3 weeks now.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
I'm gonna get you some health coverage, kid.
Yeah, it's like a viral infection in my lungs or something, so I'm on antibiotics. But it sucks. I just miss being able to train.
Yeah, some bourbon probably cure that shit right up.
Yeah,
probably knock it right out of your lungs.
Yeah. But Bill, that whole quintet thing, I've seen something like that before. I think it was Team Polaris versus Team 10th Planet, and
Yeah.
it just looked really cool, dude. Like I was saying, the lineup strategy seems really cool. And if you get one guy on your team and he eliminates all five guys on the other team, that counts too.
Yeah. I mean, but then it depends, like if it's the first round, because then if that's your best guy, he's going to be exhausted because he just grappled 5 times. Then you got to put him in the second round, so you got to think about that too.
Yeah,
And then if that's your best guy and he loses when he
yeah,
goes first, then like you're fucked because then
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, it was kind of interesting because in the past it's always kind of been like that, where you have guys who are like wrestlers or they do other kinds of grappling. So you have them mixed in there. They're not really going to submit anybody, but they're good at avoiding submissions from the really good jiu-jitsu guys. So it definitely was an interesting dynamic. And it was cool how they did like the teams from the different organizations.
yeah.
So that was fun. It was pretty cool. It was worth a watch. I found myself more interested in it than watching a normal grappling tournament, because those things get kind of boring. Even if it's like EBI rules or stuff like that, I just can't. Like, I love jiu-jitsu. I love doing jiu-jitsu, but watching it is like, it's like any other sport for me. Like, I'd rather be doing it than watching it.
Yeah, with jiu-jitsu, it's got to be the right people fighting each other for me to watch. Otherwise, I'm not going to get up out of bed for it.
Yeah, especially a lot of these high-level jiu-jitsu guys like pulling guard and stuff, and I'm immediately checked out mentally.
Yeah, dude.
You want to fight somebody on the ground, you don't even want to take the effort to put them there. I'm done. Next, changing the channel.
Yeah, I'm more of a half guard player myself. I'm not a fan of pulling full guard. It's weird.
It is weird. All right.
Too many X factors.
Yeah. Like X guard. That's an X factor. All right. That's enough, Jeff. We're getting off the rails here. We've gone over an hour, which is like, that's the no-go zone for us. Like to keep this thing in like 45 minutes, but we're a day late, so maybe we're a little step behind. We're like Uriah Faber against Peter Yan today. But we're walking out of this with our faces intact. So let's call it there. We want to know what you guys are thinking and drinking out there, so get a hold of us on social media. If you guys want to get a hold of the animal, it's at animal_Wilson, Twitter and Instagram. Don't forget to give the animal a follow on Instagram, and you guys know how to get a hold of me. It's at MMA on the Rocks, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Visit MMAonTheRocks.com. Send me an email, MMAonTheRocks@gmail.com. I'm very accessible despite my imminent fame. In any case, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you're listening, please leave us a review. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Give us a share. And that's it.
And leave us a review.
Yeah, do that too. All right. Until next time. Cheers, everybody. Goodbye.